Hi everyone, Sid here back again in the bathroom as always. Today's lather will be supplemented by lavender. Felt like keeping it simple today. So for today's video I'm going to attempt to take a stab at some of the inherent problems and the inherent problems that exist when people try to justify the existence of a state. I hope this is going to make some sense. I didn't do much to prepare for this video, but there is one thing that I can address right off the cuff, and that is this is yet another rehash of something that Stefan Molyneux did in the past. I'm sorry for those of you who are tired of hearing his name, but for myself anyway, I'm fortunate enough that I've reached the point where I can kind of argue the same things that he does, but in my own words. That wasn't always the case. Maybe that'll be the topic of another video. But the main thing that I want to take a stab at first is that there's no configuration of good or bad people that can justify the existence of a state. So, I think it was in Practical Anarchy that he goes over this. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that there are good people and bad people. And one possibility that we can ignore is that, because it's statistically negligible, is that there are the exact same amount of good people and bad people in the world. I think that statistically, it is so, it's such a long shot statistically that the odds of that being the truth are slim to none, and therefore that situation can be ignored. So, the four remaining positions, the four remaining configurations that are left is that either all people are good, all people are bad, or most people are good, some are bad. I think that's the one. And most people are bad, some are good. So, in the case of all people being bad, if all people are bad, we can't have a government, because a government or state, I'll be using those two words synonymously. I know that in some contexts they're not synonyms, but you know, I've already started using it, so let's just go with it. So, by definition, a government is an organization that has a monopoly over the initiation of the use of force in a geographic area. So, if all people are bad, we need to have this kind of balance of power where all people can exert evil upon one another with the same amount of risk, and that would not be the case with the government, because some of the bad people could just do their shit with impunity and use the power of the state to punish people who did bad on them or their friends or whatever. So, the second situation that I will address is that all people are good. So, in that context, a state is unnecessary because all people are good. You know, there is no theft, or at least no voluntary, aforeplanned, thought out in advance kind of theft. Like if a book ends up being stolen, it's just because the guy honestly thought that it was his friend's book, and he took it thinking that he'd return it to his friend, or he has his friend's consent to take the book. And when the guy, the legitimate owner of the book, says, "Hey, where's my book?" It would be pretty easy to find this guy, and he would say, "Oh shit, I thought this was Gus's book," and he'd say, "No, this is my book," and Gus would say, "No, my book's over there," and whatever. So, I don't think there's much more that needs to be said with that case. If all people are good, we really don't need government, since the PR reason why we need a state is to protect us from bad people, of which there are none. Now, that leaves us with the two more interesting cases. they're interesting in the sense that I'm not 100% versed in how to go into the problems as eloquently as I'd like, but they are both subject to the same problem. So I'll just address them both at the same time because they both have the same core problem. So if most people are good, some are bad, or most people are bad, some are good, the thing with that is if we have an institution that can initiate force against people with impunity, or at will anyway, with impunity for the most part, then people who want to do bad will gravitate towards that. And I remember because, when I'm with clients, every now and then we'll get into discussions where I don't want to pretend to believe the opposite of what I believe, but if I have, depending on the situation, I'll either stay nice and vague, or I'll see an opportunity to make a point in a way where I won't necessarily out myself as to what I really think. So let me ask you a question that I asked this client when we were talking about democracy and whatnot. How many good, decent, moral people do you know who feel like telling other people what to do? So, as I've illustrated with my question, and I think that in the, 1 second post-production that this took, you'll realize that I would guess that you don't know anyone that you consider decent and moral and nice who wants to tell other people how to live their lives or wants to impose their will upon other people. This reminds me of an anecdote that I won't get into now. I don't even know if I'll have time to get back to it. But let me just continue with this thread. So in the case where most people are bad and a small minority of people are good, then we can't have a government because the good people will never get their way and will get their will stamped out by the overwhelming majority of bad people out there. This is a problem with democracy in particular under this configuration of people because the good people who want to take care of the poor, for instance, and who don't realize how shitty it would be over time to entrust the government with this. I've shot videos on this in the past. Would just get their ambition stamped out by the overwhelming majority or the majority of bad people. And they would never get their way, and the bad people, the percentage of bad people who got into power would be able to lord power over everyone else, and that would be a huge problem. Now, in the case where most people are good and some are bad, and again, I think this is what we have now because the logical result resembles what we have now, which is the bad people who are attracted to power and who want to rule over people using the system of the state would basically lie to people and promise a whole bunch of good things that they would do once they're in power to get the majority of the votes. Again, this is assuming democracy, and once they get into power, they would break their promise. And I think this should ring familiar with all of you. And if not, I mean, when was the last politician that you heard of who kept even half of his or her campaign promises once in power? I mean, they're again, as bad people tend to be when they're outnumbered in a democratic society and in the public eye, they typically do a good job of spinning a bunch of bullshit as to why once in power they basically did the opposite of what they said they were going to do during the campaign. But one thing is for sure. I think I put too much aftershave. One thing is for sure. It's kind of a meme, like it's kind of a trope that again, I'm coming back to that sentence of how do you know a politician is lying? His lips are moving, because the bad people, they need the support of the majority of good people to get into power, and then once they're in power, with the impunity of the protection of the state, they can do whatever the fuck they want, and we're powerless to stop them, except maybe voting them out in 4 years. I'll definitely want to shoot a video more specific to democracy, or at least make this a series or whatever. But the bottom line is whether it's majority good people, some bad, or majority bad people, some good, we can't have a government, because the bad people would eventually end up in government and lord power and unleash all sorts of evil, no matter what they say during their campaign. And I think I have a bit of time to go into this this anecdote that I was reminded of. This was a couple years ago when I was club president of my Toastmasters club, and I knew these people, I was comfortable, and I had known them for a while, and I had dropped the A-bomb, that's how I call outing myself as an anarchist, quite some time prior. And while I was president, some people were making comments about it's funny, there's it's the first time our club has had an openly anarchist president, and I'm like, yeah, well, the difference is you can walk away at any time, and I can't do sweet fuck all about it. And I forget how the context that led to this comment, but one of the members, because I was talking about how I had no real desire to be president, I kind of became the candidate and winner through a set of circumstances that I don't really feel like going into right now. But the bottom line is, it was the right time for me to be president. I didn't really want to say no to that opportunity. Ultimately, I'm glad I didn't. But when I was talking about how I didn't really particularly feel like being club president, this guy said, something I picked up along the years is that in order to lead, one must first want to lead. And I remember the saying, yeah, that seems like a recipe for sociopathy. Now, in a context of voluntary association, that's not necessarily true, but I know me and that guy had multiple discussions, and I was kind of playing both levels at the same time, between the Toastmasters, which is completely voluntary, and the politics, which is completely coercive, majority coercive at best. So that'll be it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this made sense. You can please feel free to leave comments under this video. You can like, share. You can subscribe to me on YouTube. Please, that would help me out a lot. And on Twitter, I am @SidrockMTL. Thank you again for watching. I will see you next time. You take care.